there's no way they didn't recognize who you were.
No, in fact, they sent back to the headquarters. This is an American ship, American and friendly. As Larry said at the beginning of the show, they had us on their their war table as American. It's USS Liberty. They know exactly who they were. They said they changed the watch, and for some odd reason, they scooted us out of the way, and we didn't exist anymore. So that was their way of saying, "Whoops, we got an unidentified ship here, and it must be Russian or Egyptian."
Which
And
even
Egyptian ships were Russian, so there was
yeah,
no, even visually, you can't really mistake a Russian ship for an American ship during this time period.
the ship they tried to say we were was the El Quasir. It was a horse transport that was almost sunk in Alexandria. It was an old piece of junk, and it was a little ship, and ours is 350 foot long. And theirs was 120
which
to 150.
which is ultimately still pretty small for an American ship.
Yeah, well, 350. Yeah, of course, there's a lot bigger ones, but no, I mean it was a pre-planned attack to get us in the area, sink us fast, blame it on the Arabs, and who knows what
And,
happens.
and
I do know this: we were close to World War III within seconds. I think Larry will
so
agree with that.
so before and I don't want to cut you off, so don't take that as me being pushy, but when did it go south? About what time and who first became aware that it was going south? When did it go south? About what time and who first became aware that it was going south?
1400 local time was when the aircraft came out with their first strafing run. So prior to that, we had held another training drill, as Phil had mentioned earlier. We were training every day, so we had a practice general quarters. Everyone would man their battle stations and prepare for whatever the operation was that we were trying to combat. That day, I think it was a chemical warfare, and we had guys out with their protective suiting on and so on, and washing down the ship for any chemical agents. But we secured from that at about 1:30 in the afternoon, and then people went back to their normal assignments. Some guys were on the deck, sunbathing because it was a beautiful day, clear skies, uh, and when they came in on their first strafing run, Phil was topside, and he can tell you more about what they saw and what they heard. I was down below decks and setting a position. So, Phil, you want to pick it up from there, or?
Sure. Yeah, I was on the deck, and I was in the starboard gun mount during the drill, as Larry's talking about. I was in an impregnated suit, as Larry said. I had an 8 foot nozzle pretending to wash down the ship, and in an impregnated suit, it's exactly what it means. It was so hot, I almost passed out doing that drill because it was so hot I could hardly breathe. And thank God the thing was over, or I'd have collapsed in front of the captain. That wouldn't look good.
Well,
So
we've all been in mop gear.
yeah,
Um,
okay,
so so my first experience with mop gear was in Oklahoma in the summer. So
It's
I
like,
know how you feel, bro.
yeah, got it.
and
Well,
it's in the Mediterranean in the summer, so yeah, a lot of extra heat there.
yeah, yes, sir. And
So you just finished this exercise. You're in your suit. The exercise is over. You're saying, "Okay, thank the good Lord, that's done." Then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
right, I got a request from the bridge. Uh, the sound powered phones weren't working in the starboard gun mount. So I went to the IC shop and got a technician there that takes care of sound powered phones and things like that. And
And these are the secure lines that run wired throughout the ship so that the commander and others can communicate throughout
yeah,
the.
they're just like these headsets with a little round deal, and you push a button, and it's all sound powered. They need that. They're in both gun mounts in certain places on the ship, so everybody's on the same page where they can talk. So anyway, I got uh, uh, Skolak to go up there. He was a fireman. Uh, he's a good friend of mine, same division, and there was a gunner in there too. And we BS'd a while, and we were looking on the beach, and we could see the bombs hitting and everything. I said, "Hey guys, this would be one of the worst places in the world to be if we ever got attacked." And we thought it would be of course, the Arabs. But and the captain, I could see him. He was on the flying bridge, and he was very strict about lollygagging and goofing around. So I said, "I got to get out of here and go back to my duty station. I don't want to get in trouble." And so I left on the starboard side, walked back to my duty station, got just got in the hatch, and there's a great explosion right outside the hatch, which I thought the motor torpedo boat blew up because they had a test for it. I was going to go outside, and one of my shipmates pulled me back. Uh, Nice did, and said, "Man, we're under attack." And that's when hell broke loose, and they hit every antenna on that ship except the one that was taken out of service. They hit every watertight door. Every watertight door on that ship within a minute, within probably 2 or 3 minutes of the first strafing.
These are strafing runs by, at that time they would have been
Steers,
yeah,
mirages.
mirages, and they would have been using nose mounted. Were they 30 millimeter cannons?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't want to swear to that, but
It's basically the equivalent of what an A-10 would have done, just in a
yeah.
far
I'm gonna,
different.
I'll grab something here for you.
Oh, he's going to show us something. So, Larry, where were you at that time?
At that time, my general quarters station was one deck above the the comm center and our radio research number one.
So you were in a secure room.
I was in a secure room in the middle of the ship, um, and still copying code, doing the same mission that I was doing earlier that day, only one level higher. Uh, Part of what they were trying to do was make sure that if something were to happen to the area below, we could still do our job in another location. So
Redundancies were built into your system.
yes.
So, what were you going to show us, Phil?
Okay, this is one of the rocket holes I cut out of the ship, and there were over 850 of these. Some much bigger.
They were hitting you with rockets, or were they hitting
Rockets,
and guns?
machine guns, napalm, anything they could throw at us. Torpedoes.
Well, the torpedoes came in after the first strafing run.
Well,
Yes.
but they strafed us. They strafed us more than once to do this. And how many airplanes did it take to put 850 of these in our ship?
But you said on their first strafing run, they hit you enough to take out all of your watertight doors.
Yes, all
And
watertight doors.
And they took down all of your communication ability.
Yes, sir. And that left these guys' jobs were pretty much taken away from them.
So it was done at that point.
Yeah.
Because you do not hit. So they knew who you were. They had already announced that you were the USS Liberty. They had to have known what kind of being a close ally with the United States. The Israeli Defense Forces and intelligence had to know what kind of ship you were. This is a calculated move. They knew what to target and how to target it. And so they came over with their Mirages. They unleashed rockets. Were they probably 57 millimeter rockets at that time?
I'm not sure. I just knew they made a lot of noise and spread a lot of shrapnel.
Yeah, not that it matters. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
give people an idea, especially the military buffs that are out there. Uh, and they're hitting you with armor-piercing rounds from guns, from basically Vulcan-style cannons. They come by, they do all that damage the first round or that first strafing run. How soon after the first strafing run do they come in with the second?
Well, it was very 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 methodical. Let's put it that way. I talked to Admiral Moore. He was a good friend of mine, a former Joint Chiefs of Chairman. He was a Superman, a great guy. He said that there's no way that they could do this with 3 aircraft. No way. He said this had to be 8, 10, 15 aircraft to do this much damage in that short a time, which to us every second was an hour.
Right.
But I might add earlier when Larry was talking about their communications, and they were instructed not to, if they picked up a English or UK signal or a Israeli communication, they were supposed to drop it. Is that correct, Larry?
That's correct.
So we weren't spying on any of our buddies. We were spying on the people we should be spying on, Russia and others. Everybody does it, and we did it too, probably better than anybody.
Oh yeah, the American intelligence gathering is a monolith of gargantuan power, um, no matter who it's aimed at. Uh, so after that first run, you guys had already taken massive casualties because your ship complement was how many men?
294.
So you 294 men at this after that first strafing run. You guys are in full battle mode at that point, with no defense other than 50 millimeter guns, which are going to be no match for full speed strafing runs by any kind of aircraft.
Well, the 450 calibers were taken out on the first run. They were gone.
Right.
So we were more than helpless.
Yeah. At that point, you were completely defenseless.
Yes.
And how many people roughly do you estimate out of that 294 were wounded or killed in that first run?
Well, I don't know if it was the first run, second, or the third, but it was 9 people killed first, and ended up 174 others wounded, some so severely they were clinging to life. And Larry can attest to this, what the mess decks looked like, Larry. This is after the fact, but it was pretty sad, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Every table in the mess decks had a mattress on it with a wounded veteran. Some were severely wounded. Others were, wounded severely enough that they needed to be attended to medically. We only had one doctor and 2 corpsmen on board. So the doctor was doing a miraculous job just trying to keep men alive with the few supplies that you have on a ship like ours. So it was traumatic for us to come down to the mess decks and try and comfort our shipmates, knowing that some of them weren't going to make it, and others were just laying there with gaping wounds, basically waiting for medical support from other Sixth Fleet assets that didn't arrive until 18 hours after the attack.
So, if I remember the story correctly, somebody was able to get off a call for help.
Yes.
Early in the attack, somebody was it the captain or?
No, what Phil was saying was that one of our antennas had been out of commission from the start of the cruise, and it needed to be rewired. Terry Halbardier, a electronics technician, third class, took some coax cable and went out to that antenna and rewired it so that we were able to get out a distress signal to the Sixth Fleet.
You guys are under attack, and this guy, at severe risk of life and limb, because that's what we do in these situations, right? Goes out and rigs a repair on an antenna, hopefully to get out a call, also risking his own life, because at that point you never know when the next attack is coming, or if they see any signs of life, what they're going to do.
Well,
That's true.
Were you guys under in that moment? Was everybody like, who attacked us? Who attacked us? Or did everybody at that point know where it was coming from?
we had no idea. We thought it was the Arabs. We had no idea it was the Israelis. Their jets were completely black. They were marked out. There was no markings on them. We couldn't identify anybody. And when they did get the antenna going, and this is no kidding, they were receiving distress calls in Vietnam. For God's sakes, they could hear us crying out for help. You know, Rockstar, under attack by unknown jet aircraft. Rockstar, need help. And that was our call sign, Rockstar. So the United States, they put us there. They planned it. They knew it was going to happen. The rest of the world didn't. The military didn't. They wanted to come help us, and Johnson recalls the aircraft, not once, but twice. We have this on tape of helicopter pilot and a Navy jet fighter pilot that were sent there to help us, and they wouldn't let them come help us. They said, just leave the area. Just leave the area. Go back to base.
Yet, because, and just to refresh people, this is Sixth Fleet, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So your Sixth Fleet admiral, Sixth Fleet is massive. At that time, and even now, but at that time, Sixth Fleet was massive. It was a massive battle group. That admiral launched fighter aircraft to come to your aid, and received orders from higher up saying, bring them back.
That's correct.
Well, in fact, Captain Joe Tully, skipper of the USS Saratoga, immediately launched aircraft as soon as he got the call. Immediately launched aircraft. They were recalled. He again reconfigured his aircraft and sent another volley of aircraft to come to our aid, and we recalled again. And when Captain Tully got his ship back to port, they relieved him of command and destroyed his career because he wanted to come help us. That's what they did to that man. And he was an ace fighter pilot in World War II. And look how they treated him.
So this distress call for help is going out. It's being literally heard by United States naval forces around the world. As far as Vietnam, which of course we had troops and naval forces and sailors and airmen in Vietnam by that point in that area. So this is being well broadcast. You have Sixth Fleet launching help. Call comes down to bring the help back. You guys are now abandoned, not necessarily by the rank and file or even other command staff or captains, but by the United States government, by the United States intelligence machine, the State Department, and all that. You have been abandoned. You are dead in the water at that point. In the sense of still under power, but you didn't have the ability in that moment to just break off and go, excuse the terminology, balls to the wall and get out of there. You've got a massive amount of casualties that you're seeing to. You don't have the medical facility on board your ship to deal with all of that. You're alone, and your captain begins to respond and say, we've got to do something.
Well, we got a little ahead of ourselves, or I did possibly, but I do want to say this about the CTs and the engineers that stayed below the water line, and imminent death was headed their way when the torpedoes were coming.
Because the torpedoes hadn't come at this point. This is the first strafing run. You guys get the antenna up. The distress call comes out. Help gets called back. Now another round of attacks comes.
Yeah, and these guys are sitting ducks down there to be blown to bits.
Keeping that ship, excuse me, not boat. We don't use boats in the Navy unless it's underwater.
Well, they didn't leave their duty stations or abandon like a bunch of rats. They stayed right there. Now, what kind of American heroes was that? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, in my word. And I say that with all due respect to the 25 communication technicians that were blown to bits in an instant. And after they did that, the torpedo boats circled the ship and machine gunned everybody on deck that they could get to.
Because the torpedo boats came in, launched torpedoes at you.
Yes.
How many of those torpedoes hit?
1 out of 5 or 6. 1. I saw 2 of them go aft. I know where 1 went. We got hit. The other, I don't know.
But we know for a fact you saw torpedo fin and trail in the water, and that one makes contact. Where did that one hit?
Right in his work area, right in Larry's work area. It hit there, and instantly it'd be those guys to bits, and the ship started rolling over. These guys finally got out. Larry was handing out life jackets. He was helping people out of the scuttle, getting them life jackets, trying to help people get out there and stay alive. And I went back down there later, and there were still people down there, a few more. But the point being is these people knew exactly who we were, and shooting that at close range at our firefighters and stretcher bearers or anybody they could get, and then they left and sent troop helicopters with Marines in them to finish us off and scuttle the ship.
These were Israeli Marines, or they could have been Israeli Special Forces at this point.
Yeah, who knows? It really didn't make any difference. They could have had BB guns and still killed us.
But, because you had a small contingency of weapons on board the Liberty, but it was that arms locker was locked.
Yeah, we couldn't get into it. So
nobody on the Liberty at that point had a weapon, even so much as a sidearm, that would have been enough to defend against or repel an attack like that.
No, we were helpless, absolutely helpless, and they left, and they got recalled back because we hadn't sunk yet.
But it looked like you were going to.
Yeah, we thought we were going to, but they already fessed up and said, "Okay, we attacked an American ship by accident, mistaken identity." And so they left it at that. That was their way of saying, "Oh, gee."
One plane accidentally firing a rocket or anti-ship weapon of some sort is an accident. Numerous strafing runs with rockets and cannons, and multiple torpedo boats launching multiple torpedoes and then circling a ship in the water is not an accident, no matter what they say. But the worst of it hasn't even happened yet because you guys have taken all these casualties. They send out attack or troop transport helicopters to allow people to rappel down to take you out if need be. They recall that because it looks like the Liberty is going to go down. But yet now another helicopter shows up, and who's on board that?
That was the attache, Captain Castle from the embassy in Tel Aviv, or I guess Tel Aviv. But yeah, they were there like, boy, we sure sorry. Have you casualties? He sent down a card, a business card. Have you casualties?
And this was from the Israelis, but there was an American military officer on that helicopter.
Yeah, Castle. And, you know, the captain just told him to leave. But, I mean, the guy could see the deck was full of blood. The machine gun turrets were full of blood. There was parts all over. Our ship was burning up from napalm. Have you casualties? Give me a break.
Now, I may have misunderstood when I listened through your guys' telling of this story when I first heard of you as individuals. Your ship captain maybe wasn't quite as polite as "get out of here."
No, he was a little bit more vocal than that.
Yeah. He was at this point. He's like, I don't trust anybody, obviously, and he was going to save his boys. He was going to save his boys.
Well, we had a Russian trawler come up first. It was going to help us, and the captain said, "No way, Jose." The Russians were the first people there to help us, and of course, we're not going to let Russians on a spy ship,
right?
You know, but they did.
Well, you know, but to their credit,
yeah,
at least they were doing something.
Yeah.
Which, you know, of all the people to come to your aid, the people you thought would have been the ones to come after you are the ones who are now coming to your aid.
Yeah.
So, story of our foreign policy, quite frankly.
Let's not forget Mickey LeMay that's not here, and I'd like to tell his story if I could, because it's very important and it's very inspirational. God-fearing.
There were a lot of heroes that day, but Mickey's story.
Yeah, Mickey's story is incredible. Mickey was a second-class electrician, and he wanted to go up on the main deck and see what was going on. So he was up on the flying bridge where there's a big Carbonex light, you know, that they shine and stuff like that. But he saw one plane go by, a black jet, and then one come straight down the middle of the ship, and that's where Mickey got hit. And
he took a round.
You know, he was so badly wounded, I didn't think he had a chance of living. I mean, he was bad. He's still got 52 pieces of shrapnel in his body right now. Think about that. 52 pieces of shrapnel in him, not counting what they took out of him. When after the helicopters got there, they airlifted him out, and he went to definitive care. I don't know exactly where, but they ended up sending him to Germany. And
Monstur.
I'm not sure. Ramstein, I think it could have been. But they got him there, and the first day he was there, he was in a room with a lot of people. The second day he's there, they put him in his own suite, a own bed, and he was dressed down by a naval officer that his name is no longer LeMay. His name is Smith. And he never was aboard the USS Liberty. He should never talk about it again to anybody. They split all these CTs up all over the world. They split them up to scare him to death, which they did. They scared me to death when I got dressed down by Admiral Kidd.
Well, let's because that comes up after you guys steam out. You are able to finally get underway. Like your ship captain said, Job assignment aside, we can't do it anymore. We're on our way out of here. But you're really running dark. And after the attack, and after telling the attaché and everybody else to go take a flying freaking leap at a rolling O, the Liberty starts to go under power and starts to leave the area. But it was a long night.
A very long night, right, Larry?
Oh yeah, yeah. We didn't know if we were still in danger of sinking or not because that torpedo had damaged one of the bulkheads walls for non-Navy types, and Phil and his crew did damage control down there to shore up that sagging wall to keep us afloat.
Which was
And
kind of a protocol practice, if I remember correctly. It was one of those things like you had procedures in place to be able to take those kind of actions, correct, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely, we did, and it was training again that was exceptional. But it was more. To be honest with you, it was moving without thinking. It was just
It
we
was
did what we
such a
had to
part
do.
of your nature.
Yeah, and it was all hands on deck that were able to do it because there were so many that just couldn't, that wanted to but couldn't. And
Well, you're under half strength at this point.
oh yeah, absolutely. And Larry's in the let's put it the hospital, if you may, in our sick bay, trying to help these guys keep their lives. He helped one sailor, tried to help one sailor. He was a postal clerk, John Spicer, and that's a very heartwarming story. I'll let Larry tell him what happened. Larry, you know more than I do about it.